So yeah, barely made it this time, y'all. Like not feeling the vibes, not even a little bit. I was reviewing the key and I'm like, I don't care if I want to talk about this this week. Have you ever gotten in that state? I get in that state a lot. I do a lot of spiritual work. Coming down from that is never easy. And then, of course, interruptions. So, it, I am committed to this, guys. I think it's important that people know it's not always easy to go live or put the video up or do all the things online. But I think this is a nice confluence for the energies that are coming up this week. And what does it mean to us? And what does it mean to our business? And what does it mean about continually doing the work of connecting to those we are inviting to our business, right? It's a continual self exploration for me because I'm so an introvert at heart. I'm quite comfortable by myself for months. I tolerate my husband because I love him. But for the most part, I like to be alone. I love reading. I love learning. I love playing by myself. It's something where it doesn't take extra for me. I'm comfortable with it. And I know for others, it's the opposite, right? We're not as comfortable being alone. So, one of the things about this week is this gate 37. This is the gene key of equality, the gift of equality. And the quantum human design word is peace. And the reason why I'm jumping to that is because what is your peace? What does your peace look like? That's going to come up when we talk a little bit about the contents later, okay? So it is the gene key of the shadow of weakness, the gift of equality, the city of tenderness. So, what really spoke to me about this key? Number one, it's in the solar plexus, which is our emotional center, and it is connected to the will center. That's the one thing. The other thing is that the opposite channel of the gate, so they call it the programming partner in Gene Keys, is 40, and also the oppositional uh, energy is also 40. This is the first time I've seen this, guys. Tell me, is there another one of these? Are my Gene Key experts out there? I don't think there is. I don't know. We'll see when I get through all of them. But I find that very interesting, and it makes it to me like a double dose of not only are we seeking and needing the other side of this energy in order to feel complete, but we're also uh, not in harmony in that. In other words, we find it to feel oppositional when we're seeking both. So for both to be true is very interesting. I'm still wrapping my head around what that really means for me, so to speak, and well, what that may mean for you guys. Okay, how is this energy? How does that come up for you? I'm doing a live later today, and it's going to be about anchoring your purpose with vocal power. And I feel like this is a very somehow these things are coming together to make this amalgamation of this deep internal research on how are we communicating our connection with others. Is it heartfelt, and how do we be heartfelt if we don't feel like we are complete? And that's kind of what this energy brings up. Now weakness in the shadow is this kind of um, hmm, projected understanding of masculine strength or masculine energy strength onto femininity, right? So that strength is the version of power, right? Power and hierarchy, and weakness is that that projection's image, right? And so in the shadow, essentially, we are taking on these projections and these distortions of how others view power, right? And so I find that very interesting because it rocks a lot of dynamics and it is speaking totally into the world that we're moving into. So when I think about moving into the Aquarian age, you're thinking community, or thinking about again, the balance or the rise of femininity to balance and to invite the divine masculine, right? We are thinking about such big institutions because power and the dynamics of power, masculine versions of power, structures of power have looked like hierarchy, right? Like um, what do they call it, oligarchies, and places that we have seen that you require status in order to have influence, right? And that is just part of our structure at this point. Our governments are hierarchical, our churches, our religions, our cultural, our structures, our societal structures are hierarchical. We're barely making out with the family. And it's so interesting that this really digs in at the family. So it's really hard to like kind of bring it back out. It is so much enmeshed in how we are loving, connecting. And the heart of that is the family in our historical precedent. And this key is asking us to see if we can see the glimmers of how family has become universalized in the necessity to evolve into the Aquarian age, essentially. Okay. And so, what does that mean in business? Business is traditionally hierarchical. And now that we're building businesses that are more heart centered, what does the structure look like when it's no longer built on these pyramids? Only so many can fit at the top pyramids, right? And so it brings up a lot because now it's like, okay, what does that have to do with anything? We're supposed to be talking about content eventually. How do we get there from there? Another fact about the gene key of 37 is that it is of the ring of divinity. It is of the amino acid proline. I think those things are good to know because for people who understand what that means, especially in the amino acid, it's probably a very select amount of people. But it does start to speak when you start to look at the connections between these keys and between the rings and how the rings are put together with different keys. You start to realize, oh, this is speaking to the heart of being human. It's the heart of being human is our spirituality. Our spirituality is our way of expressing what love is to us. And that's again why it comes back to family. In the business world, the business is a family. It's a family, it's a group of people not biologically always connected. And so people are starting to try to see, like, well, if we take it out of these strictures of hierarchy, what does a business look like when we take it out of that structure? It looks like community. So you start talking to a lot of people who talking to a lot of people who are inviting people to business through community. And that is one of the things that I do. It's something that I've always talked about. So that is part of how we're going to tie it into content. Um, we had a period where we're talking about our businesses and our audiences and the people that can be benefited by our service and our business as tribe, right? And so that we aren't kind of bastardizing the term, that we all have a history. At one point, all of us have ancestors that lived in networks of families, which are essentially is tribes, right? And so we have that the tendency to put our family first when it comes to our hearts and our love, to put our tribe first when it comes to our hearts and our love, and then our community or our nationalism starts. You can keep projecting outward. We can continue to project those. I have a thing here. Maybe I'll talk about it, but like a ring of acquaintance, I think it's called, that that actually outlines all of these different versions, and we can talk about those and say, "Oh, I love them all," but if I have to choose between my family and the community or my local community, then I'm going to choose my family. If I have to choose between my a community of African Americans and white people, I'm going to choose African Americans, right? Like we all have that dynamic. And when we are truly meeting with our hearts, which is again an aspect of the gene keys, is that this is how is your heart show up? Is it showing up in fear? Is it showing up in the possibility of love? And love has no boundaries. It has no limitations. Not true love. Unconditional love has no boundaries, right? So what does that look like? What does that look like? How do we walk into that from where we are today? Um, how I often do this, like, okay, if it takes me having to qualify my answer based on one of these tribal communal associations, connections, right? Then maybe it's time to look at my heart, and if I'm ready to open up beyond that association, right? And in our content, I think this is something we really have to decide, because that's the whole point of a lot of people talking about niche. That's the whole point of a lot of people talking um, about ideal customers, this kind of thing. And I have used that language as well, but mostly because I know like the aspects that serve my clients, but those aspects have never been included by race or you know, gender or non-gender, right? Like I have had trans clients, I have had um, clients from around the world, so not even nationality. It's never been a stricture for me. Age has never been a stricture for me. You know, the majority of my clients are older than me. So it would be kind of weird to have like this thing of, well, around the age spectrum of that I'm in, right? Because I'm a one-on-one service provider. Um, you know, these are questions that we have to ask ourselves and are probably already coming up because this energy is up. So this full moon in Pisces, did I even mention that this full moon in Pisces is kind of a big deal? It's kind of a big deal. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of this idea of um, equality. Equality exists in that understanding that with our hearts and love leading, that there are no boundaries. Our love is unlimited, and it's not contained to only one family, one place. You get it, right? Um, so what is it? So how do we call in people without putting them in those boxes, right? And for me, it looks like community tribe built on things that aren't those things, right? We all want to see a peaceful, better world. We all, in my tribe, in my community, in my business, right? We all have a vision for more love, more self expression, more connection, more authenticity, more mm, thriving, more thriving for all in my community, right? So a community is built on the basis of what we are connected to, what we are in agreement with, not what we aren't, not what we like, like not what differentiates us, but what unifies us. I think that is the closest I'm going to get to answer today. Like, what unifies your community? And I think that's some place that you can start. That's a place you can talk about. Like, what what's different about what unifies your community than another community, not as a separatist idea, but as a flag for all those who believe that we all deserve full self-expression, regardless of how we associate with our gender or not. Right? All deserve full self-expression. So, what's that for you? What's that for you? I would love to know. And then a couple questions that I pulled from the ideas that I got from Karen Curry Parker. So I think this is another way that we can go. It depends on how philosophical you are. Obviously, I'm a kind of a deep philosophical person, therefore business. We do deep work of knowing ourselves and sharing ourselves with the world. And it drives complexity on a lot of different levels when the world is changing at such a rate and when we are changing at this exponential rate, which is, again, while I'm doing this in about 10 minutes, I'm doing this Anchor Your Purpose in Vocal Power, because the changes and how we are associating with our purpose, what our purpose is looking like, how it's going to show up and be visible in the world, is shifting because of what we know now that we didn't know before, because of what we are now connected to, what we to it, what we understand about what's coming has changed. And so our purposes are looking a little different, and anchoring that in so that we can strongly and impactfully move forward is important right now. So that's why we're doing that work. And um, what a part of that is yours in helping others find peace. For me, it's like helping people find peace with change. That life has changed, and that the more we embrace that, the more we are at peace with that, the more life we invite in. So that's one of the things that I'm hoping to share in my business, and I hope is evident in my content. And then, like, what does peace mean to you? So, and then, like, maybe you can share what habits or routines you do to stay in a place of peacefulness. That would be another kind of just, I'm sharing about me, or maybe it's part of your structure of how you help people. And so you can kind of be like, well, I do this so that this part of my process or how I help people gets met, those needs get met, right? So for me, those habits, those routines are my practice and my vocal practice, right? So I'm constantly sharing those things. We're going to share again tonight, right, on this event. Um, and then this idea. So I'm kind of asking to buy into a long-term vision here of love without boundaries. And if you are willing to buy into that idea, and instead of it being like solely about marketing and being louder than the next person, or being brighter and shinier than the next person, what if it was the peace that we bring people that was contagious? Was it Maya Angelou said, people won't always remember what you do, but they'll always remember how you make them feel. I love that so much because it's so true. I learned this from being a performer too. It's like I could be the worst singer in the world, but if I could connect enough to invite people to a new place of emotion, feeling, and humanity, they would not forget it. They would, and they would appreciate it, right? And that's kind of the same thing I'm asking. Where's the humanity? Where's the heart of your business? Um, what is the flag that you are holding up so people know that the piece available in that heart? And can it be contagious? Those are the words in Karen's book, contagious peace. I think that's a new catchphrase for me when I'm thinking about how I'm sharing my work with the world. Contagious peace. More of that, please. All right, y'all. I will see you on the next transit video. We did it. You made another one. Thank you so much for coming by. I don't see you in chat on YouTube, then I'd love to see